Moments with Marianne. I am so excited we're spending this time here today. We have an amazing show lined up. Our first guest, Brenda Michaels, is here today to talk to us about her book, The Gift of Cancer. Now, Brenda started her career in acting and moved to LA in the late 80s. She began hosting a TV show after her first bout of cancer called Healthy Styles, where she interviewed individuals regarding natural health, including natural health advocates and celebrities. Not long afterwards, she met Paul Ryan, and they created their own radio show with a similar nature. So Brenda's book and her journey have been featured on the Today Show with Kathy Lee and Hoda in their monthly segment, Everyone Has a Story. So let's welcome to the show, Brenda.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Marianne.
What a joy it is to have you here. I mean, we've been connected for some time, and I'm so glad we're taking the time to do this.
Yes. It's always great to hear voices. We always use the Internet. We like to text people, but I love to be able to connect either personally or with a person's voice. And this is always really a special privilege and delight for me to be a guest for someone, especially when I'm interviewing all the time.
Oh. Well, I appreciate we're spending this time together. And for our listeners that might be a little new to your story, I know that you've gone through cancer a few times, actually 3. And, for some people, they're probably, because there are many people that are going through like the same type of thing. They've gone through cancer more than once. And it's a scary journey.
It's very, very frightening. And, whenever anyone hears the word cancer, I think it sends a small shock through the system and also just that fear that rises within us. And I think that is a pretty natural response based on what we've learned and where we are with cancer today in the world.
Yeah. Well, and so much has happened since then. I think that you're kind of on the forefront of people being able to make choices in regards to what they were going to do, maybe not go through radiation chemotherapy. And this, obviously, we're not here to give medical advice. That's not what we're here for today. But you really did look at other avenues that you could take along your journey.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that you pointed out that it's a choice, Marianne, because it truly is a decision that the person has to make. And we get, of course, advice from our doctors and advice from our friends and advice from our loved ones. But the real, for me, learning what I've learned, the real point of it is if you can to sit with it and see how it feels to you, which way you want to go, because you will ultimately be making the decision, and you will ultimately be the one that is experiencing whatever direction you move in. And so I think it's a very important decision to make and to collect advice from doctors especially, and then whoever else that you may respect in that area, and really sit with it and really suss out for yourself what feels the best. And it's not easy to get there because the fear is still present, and the fear will drive the mind to quick solutions and the only path it knows and a lot of other things. But if you can take that time to really be with it, I believe that the body has an intelligence, and of course we are intuitive, spiritual beings, spirit beings in the body. We do receive guidance. And thank God that I did, because I followed that guidance, and it truly worked for me.
And I think, because I've had a medical situation where one doctor told me one thing, and then I didn't feel a whole lot of, it wasn't that he was a bad doctor, I just didn't feel a whole lot of confidence in the direction that they wanted to point me in. And then meeting with a different doctor, I knew immediately this is where I'm supposed to be. And,
right.
And so it's really kind of trusting that gut, and you did that quite a bit in your decision making.
Oh, absolutely. And, when that comes up for you, you need to really pay attention to it. And thankfully you did. Thankfully I did. And if you don't, it's okay. We're all learning on this planet. We really are. on a planet that is asking us to learn lessons, to evolve, to shift, to change. And so if you don't and you go right into something because of the fear, please let yourself off the hook with that. It's perfectly normal. You're doing the best you can with the information that you have. But if you can take that moment and check in like you did and really pay attention to that feeling, because that feeling was right for you. It's always going to be right for us. It may not be in agreement with family, friends, or doctors, perhaps, but it will be what's right for us.
Well, I know the first doctor, I was actually admitted in the hospital, and he came in and chatted with me. I'm like, I got to get out of here.
Yes. You know it. You absolutely know it. Your body tells you. Your intuition tells you. Everything does tell you.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because nowadays when people start talking about especially with the medical community, I think it's a little bit better now, but when we start talking to our trained medical physicians about that type of approach, sometimes it's not always met openly.
Right. Well, it isn't because they are trained in a certain way to do what they do, to respond the way they do. And I feel like on this planet and we're learning this, we've given our power away to what we consider experts. And people ask me if I feel like I'm an expert in this regard, and I tell them absolutely not. The only expert I really am is for myself, because I do check in, I do go through those rituals that help me to stay centered and grounded and receive messages. And so I don't purport to be an expert for anyone else. What I do put out there is what I've learned and what worked for me, and if it feels right for someone else, then so be it. And if it doesn't, that's fine. We need to be our own expert. We need to be our own authority, even when it comes to doctors. Actually, the person that was the head of oncology, where I was supposed to go and do chemotherapy and where I was sent, he was just a lovely, lovely doctor. I really, really liked him. But even then, I was feeling like I really needed to take in what he said, sit with it, really explore it, and see how it really felt for me. And if it felt right, and I had that feeling that it would, then great. And if it didn't, even though he was the head of oncology, I needed to be honest with him and tell him that the treatment that he was offering, while I truly appreciated it, it was not going to be right for me. And granted, he did not understand that, and he got a little bit upset with me, but that's okay, because that's understandable and normal too. And I allowed that, and I wasn't embarrassed by it, or I didn't have my feelings hurt. I just took it in because I understood where he's coming from. And where we initially come from on all of this, and even our doctors, is from fear. And I have learned the hard way that when we make decisions out of fear, we do not make the highest and best decisions for ourselves. And doctors are in fear too. There's a lot of reasons why they fear. They fear for their patients. They fear for getting sued. They fear for giving the wrong diagnosis. They fear for a lot of reasons. And so we need to be, I think, aware that that fear is very present, and sit with that fear so that we can minimize that energy that's coming our way, so that we can get to the real guidance and the real feelings that sit inside us that can guide us on this path.
Yeah, and I would agree with you on that. And I think also doctors, because everything is so much life and death, that they take things very seriously. And so the openness, when they really know what they know, to be able to hear a different way of doing things might not really be there as much because of what's going on. But I've got to tell you, I mean, I've been talking to some friends of mine who have kids that are going through med school, and they really are looking at not only how to treat the person, but from an energy standpoint, what does that mean as well, which is kind of And an encouraging fact, I think. They're going to be fabulous.
Very encouraging, very encouraging. And I do believe that one day, Marianne, and I don't feel that it's that far off in the future, we are going to be looking at energy. Energy medicine is, there is energy medicine here right now on the planet, is being practiced, but it's not been adopted and embraced by conventional medicine, and I believe one day it will be incorporated and used as a tool to help them diagnose, to help them receive direction, and to help them know what's really underneath what is going on. For me, I looked at it, and as I grew and was learning through this process, I understood they call it a disease, but for me it was a dis-ease within me. And when I had that, when that thought was planted, when that intuitive message came through, it was like, oh my gosh, bells and whistles went off. Because dis-ease, and you can call it a disease because it's out picturing as a symptom in the body, is really, for me, was really the source of what was going on. And when I got to the core of the dis-ease, the emotional dis-ease, the spiritual disconnect, those things, and I began to heal from that place, energetically, to let those energies go and to heal those, I began to get better and better and better. And along with the physical things that I did for my body, and I actually did them with an MD of immunology, Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez, who's no longer with us, unfortunately, but I did do his program for my physical body. What I was doing was putting the pieces together. It wasn't just a physical disease. It was an emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical dis-ease that was out picturing as something we call cancer. That was the symptom. That was the signal my body was giving me. And yes, it's a harsh signal. It's a huge signal. But for me, apparently, it was the only way I was going to pay attention.
So looking back on all of this, and it sounds like there's so much that's been gained from this. I think anyone going through this journey and coming out the other side like you have would really have some insights in just how maybe to go forward with life in a different way.
Mm-hmm. I believe that if you want to call them tragedies, every tragedy has gifts and lessons contained in them. There's purpose, higher purpose in everything, even in the ugliest, harshest lesson that we have to learn. I truly in my heart know there are gifts and lessons available for us. And that's where choice comes in. You know, our power really lies in free will. We have free will, and free will means we choose. We're creating every moment of our lives. Whether we're aware of it or not, we are co-creating with all that is. And so in that creation process, are we creating from fear or are we creating from love? And there's a lot of gray area in between, but those two energies are the opposites. They do not, you can't be in a loving space when you're in fear. And you can't be in a fearing space when you are in the higher frequency of love. And so as we, learn and grow and develop in these ways, we become more astute in learning that these tragedies have a message for us, that there's something that is wanting to express, something that is wanting to be communicated, something that our higher selves are saying, we've given you this little red flag over here, and then we jumped over here, and there was a red flag over here, and maybe there was a red flag there, and maybe there was one way over there, and we didn't pay attention. And finally, we're getting that big wake-up call. And yet, it is still up to us whether we're going to awaken within that and move forward with our lives, or whether we're going to be steeped in fear, not look at what is motivating and perpetuating that lesson that we need, that our spirit is actually, and our soul is actually asking us to pay attention to. And even with all that said, we still may leave our bodies. We still may jettison the body and move on. But if we move on having learned those lessons, having embraced those precious gifts, then that is a step forward in evolution for us, whether we're on this side of the line or whether we're on the other side. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. In fact, I'm thinking too, if someone comes and connects with you and says, "Gosh, I really am going through cancer for like the second or third time, and I don't get what I'm missing. Where can I even start?"
Mm-hmm. What I recommend, because I do a lot of coaching in this regard, I start with a breathing process with them right away, and teaching them to breathe deeply, teaching them to breathe into their bodies so that they can get into the body. Most people don't live in their bodies. They live from the neck up. They're in their head.
That.
Yeah, they're thinking and they're intellectualizing and they're analyzing all of the time. And that is not occupying the body. And you need to be fully in your bodies every day, grounding into your body. And I start there. And then I teach them to breathe into each and every chakra, but particularly the heart chakra, and open the heart up, because the open heart is available for information to come through. And the open heart, the more open and grounded you are in your body and the more open-hearted you are, the more information can get through. I mean, psychics and intuitives, and we're all intuitive. Whether you know it or not, we're all intuitive. Whether we're using the intuition, the God-given intuition or not, is up to us. But we're all intuitive, and they receive that information because they have learned how to get their mind out of the way and be in that space of kind of no thing, kind of just in that space to receive. And then you can ask those questions, and then I start teaching them how to ask and what to ask to find the answers for themselves. I don't believe it's up to any coach or any doctor for that matter, anyone, to tell us what we should be thinking or what we should know or shouldn't know. We really, truly want and need to discover this for ourselves, because everybody's walk in life is different. And everyone's walk through cancer is going to be different than my walk through cancer. We may end up in a very similar place, but the walk is going to be unique to every soul. And I really try to honor that.
And because everyone's at such a different place in regards to, what's going on with their cancer, what type of treatment they're open to.
Right.
But
I work with people going through treatment all of the time. I'm not here to say don't do X. I'm here to help them. I'm here to help them to get in touch with their guidance, to know that X is right for them. And if not, you can change your mind anytime, change your direction anytime, but really just to get in touch so that they can begin to heal.
Oh, that's such a big thing, being able to have that confidence walking that path.
Yes, and really it's just practice, Marianne. I mean, I had a lot of practice every day. Every day I practiced. And I had a good reason to practice. My life was on the line. That's kind of what my soul said. It said, okay, she's not going to wake up. We've given her all these other experiences, and a lot of them were incredibly difficult and challenging. And I still was asleep. So my soul gave me this experience. And this time I made the choice to use it for my highest good. And I had to at one point surrender whether I stayed in my body or not. And that was probably the most challenging, alongside of dealing with the fear of walking that path. Could I release myself from this life enough to receive the messages I needed. That, yes, it is about the body, because the body is out picturing, but it's way bigger than the body. And I, spirit, am way bigger than my body. And if that was the road my soul was going to walk, that I was going to learn, I was going to gain a higher level of frequency and love and a higher learning and still leave the planet, could I be at peace with that? And it took me a very long time, but I was able to get there enough. I wasn't there 100%, but enough that I really feel the messages were able to come through.
I think
that if you're fearing
really
for your life,
one. Yeah.
Well, it is, because if you're living in a state of fear, no matter what it is, fear of being homeless, fear of losing all your money, fear of not being able to pay your bills, fear of dying, the messages that are there that will solve those issues for you, that will help you to heal what you created. You helped create those circumstances. What the information to help you solve it is there. But like Einstein said, you can't solve a problem at the level it was created. And all of the problems on this planet are all created in our minds. And the mind is the thinking, analytic side of us. And if you're not balanced and living in the other side, then you're way over on that side of the line where it's all about beliefs and rules and regulations and punishment, and all of that lies on that side of the line. And that's why we have so much of it, because we have so many thinking minds out there. And I'm not denigrating thinking. It's a balance. It's a tightrope to walk, but it's very possible and doable. But you have to integrate the heart, the spirit of who you are, to get those real solutions. Eckhart Tolle teaches this. He knew this. He teaches this. The great masters do teach this because they know.
Is that the number one reason people come to you, other than, working through their cancer treatments, whether it's something that they are going to continue on this planet with or not? Is the number one thing that people come to you, is it dealing with the fear of death?
I would say for the most part, yes. And I don't even coach cancer patients. I coach people that are going into bankruptcy. My husband and I coach people that are losing their jobs and don't have a lot of, whatever that is. When people reach a point where they can't do it on their own anymore, then they seek out therapists or spiritual advisors or coaches, whatever that is, to help them. So, because having cancer and being afraid of death, that's the great big overall encompassing picture. But people live with the fear of death every day, whether they are conscious of it or not. And so when it's maybe the death of a marriage, the death of a job, the death of their bank account, the death of a child, it's still centered around that deep loss that people feel and that they fear. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. I had a cancer scare a while back. Well, actually, it was quite a long time ago. And it ended up being nothing at the time. But it was like a week before I could get in to see the right doctor to do the tests they need to do. And so you have all this time to just kind of fuss over it,
Well, your mind starts to fuss over it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the mind usually goes to the worst case scenarios because the mind is so disconnected from who we are, from spirit, from, that's why mind, body, spirit, we have to be in that energetic triangle, if you will. Otherwise, the mind is very destructive and very fearful because it believes it's disconnected. The ego, and I'm talking the ego part of the mind, and we need healthy egos. We do need ego. We need it to be healthy and in alliance with spirit, with the spirit of who we are. And then you've got the best of both worlds. But when the ego's on its own, when that mind is on its own, it can be destructive and always resonates from fear.
Yeah. I totally get that because I was doing the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, So it really is a dream. Well, thank goodness we have people like you that can help, individuals on their journey, regardless what that challenge that they are looking to overcome is. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I always say, don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out and to reach out in a direction that feels right for you. And, interview the people that you want to work with. Make sure that it's like you did with your doctor. You walked into that first doctor and you immediately knew that doctor was not right for you. And that's okay, because that was a very wise choice that you made. That doctor could be right for 10,000 other people, but he wasn't or she wasn't right for you. The same when you're working with a coach or a therapist, or a spiritual counselor. Make sure it feels right for you, because when it does, then you can really create together something really beautiful and positive.
Well, and always trust your intuition too. I mean, I've heard some people say, well, just trust me and just do this. And it's like, you always have to step back and really tap into your own intuition and see if this is really something that resonates with you or not.
Yes. And it's so funny you said that, because I used to be one of those, and I'd be in a conversation and someone would look at me like, and I go, no, trust me. I do not do that anymore. I haven't done that for a very long time, because I want them to trust what they're receiving. Yeah. It doesn't mean the information that I'm giving or a person is giving is invalid or not true. It just means for you, it just didn't feel right. And that's all you need to know. And if the other person is offended by that, which I hope they would not be, but if they are, so be it. You're not responsible for what the other person is feeling. And what
Amen, sister.
Amen. You're not responsible for that. You're only responsible for yourself.
Uh-huh. And,
that's the loving thing that you do for yourself, is that you be responsible for yourself, to yourself. Very loving thing to do.
Yeah, you just want to make sure the delivery isn't aggressive. But, always stay within your own power and really decide if it's a fit for you or not, So
and if you feel uncomfortable at that time saying that, then you could say something like, thank you for all this great information. I'm going to take some time to sit with it, and I'll get back to you. And get back to them, even if it's getting back to them and letting them know you decided to move in another direction.
Yeah.
Keep your word.
That is so important. And it really helps people to practice using their voice in a more effective way when they're able to very nicely and calmly say, gosh, it's not a fit for me. Appreciate all the information.
Right.
And in that way, it's not, we're not creating any kind of issues going forward,
Well, when you're speaking from your heart, it can't come out any other way. It comes out that way. When you're allowing the heart to be present in the conversation, even if what you're hearing does not feel good to you, doesn't feel right, if you stay in your heart, you'll deliver it from that place. If you jump into your head and shut down because you're afraid, something triggered there, and it made you pull back, and how that reaction happens. If you can just take a moment and take a breath and settle back into even putting your thoughts right in the heart center will help, then you can deliver that information much more evenly toned and with respect and with love. Otherwise, it can come out rather harsh if you're going to be in fear or you're suddenly feeling defensive.
Well, and I think that that's such great information. I mean, because with the world we live in now, it does seem that things can be a little bit more abrasive than they need to be. Yes. And so making sure how we approach the world and how we show up, I think, is paramount.
Absolutely. It is absolutely paramount. And we're all learning this, and none of us are masters at it, and we're all going to slip and fall. And believe me, I slip and fall a lot. but
I still do.
not beat myself up. Yeah, but the thing of it is I don't beat myself up anymore. I forgive myself. I let myself off the hook, and I intend and say I'm going to do better next time. And this is what I learned about that. I learned, oh, wow, in that situation, oh, this is what triggered X. And so I look at that, and I sit with it, and I breathe into it so that I can, again, let that energy dissipate.
What a great place to be in. Brenda, we could talk for a long time. I mean, I really am enjoying it. I mean, time flies so quickly here.
Yes.
I don't want to have us leave without you letting people know how they can connect with you and also where they can get your book.
Yes. Well, my book is on Amazon.com and in some bookstores across the country. My website, I'll give you two. The one that I use for the book is Intentional. It just slipped out of my mind because I haven't used it for a while. I know.
Well, that's okay because we'll be sharing the link too, so no worries about that.
Yeah. The website for my book is Intentional Shift, and that's SHIF is in Frank, T, intentionalshift.com.
Oh, Brenda, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today.
No, I really appreciate you having me, Marianne, and for your listeners, I just wish them absolutely the most blessed lives that they can have.
Oh, hey, what a great way to, start your day by listening to this and moving forward. We are going to pause here for a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 1-2-3 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
Ben Wexler is a gifted leadership development and strategy consultant for professionals who want to transform their organizations and careers. Through a uniquely personalized set of processes, participants discover their unique knowledge, how to leverage that knowledge and experience, and then put it all together with a global strategy. You're more valuable, your organization is more valuable, and the change is viral. Contact Ben at 630-881-1074. 630-881-1074.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. My goodness, we have such an amazing guest coming up. I am just honored to introduce you to Derek Berman. He is the rock and roll trendsetter and was born in England during the Second World War. His life began with nothing, and he became a major force in the music industry against all odds. Now, Derek performed with some of the most major legendary rock artists. the Four Seasons, Jerry Lewis, the Beatles, just to name a few. And he's played a massive part in the rise of house and rap music. So Derek's here today to share with us some of his wisdom that he's gained from over the years, and also to talk about his book, The Book of Life. So let's welcome to the show, Derek.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
What a joy it is to have you here. Now, I have to ask, I know your book's been out for a little while, but your message is just so phenomenal. What inspired you to follow this path?
Well, you mean to write the book or to follow my path?
Actually, a little bit of both. Yeah, because I know you had a very extensive career in Hollywood, and you still do, it seems like, so, I'm just always curious what inspires people to make some of the moves that they do.
Well, I was born very, very poor. So I had to make some kind of a move. I was born near the end of the Second World War when bombs were raining down. And I don't remember much of that, actually. But they must have had an effect on me because I was born in 1942 and the war ended in 1945. So when I was 5 years old, which I still don't remember, I got peritonitis, my appendix burst. And I went to convalescent home for 6 months. My parents never visited me because they couldn't afford to come to the seaside where I was. And so I didn't have a very good life then, and I needed to do something about that. So I did. Look, I want to tell you why I wrote the book. Every morning when I wake up, before I get out of bed, I thank the universe for the incredible life that I have had. I believe the reason for my good fortune in this life is because of the time when I was much younger that I learned some incredible lessons from life. I was just lucky to meet people and have people in my family that were not very nice, whatever, but I learned incredible lessons from life, seeing how other people behaved and taking notice of these things. I found that humanity as a whole are desiring the wrong things in life. People are chasing money, fame, fortune for all the wrong reasons, whereas we should all be looking for happiness. Money, fame and fortune, they don't bring us what we're really seeking. Behind all this craziness, we're really looking for happiness. And I have found that happiness. Then I acquired real fame and fortune. And fame and fortune really means something when you are also happy. Not happy because you've acquired something, not happy because you've won something, but just happy because you're alive. When I was younger, I was too busy being happy. I helped many people along the way, but the reason I've written this book is to share what I know about life. And if people read it, if you answer for yourself the questions that I pose in the book, and if you do the exercises, my hope is that you will gain the knowledge about life that I have and I'm trying to give. And that's why I wrote the book. And I've been saying you can always write to me on my website. Lots of people are writing to me and saying, I don't understand this. I'm answering the questions and hopefully they'll get it. You see, the world is made in a way that just gets people to look for the wrong things. Mm-hmm. Happiness is what everyone's striving for, but they don't know it. And when they get really rich or really famous, they say, what am I doing? What, is this all there is? And what there is happiness, but they don't achieve it. And that's why I wrote the book.
Well, I would agree with you 100%. And I love the inspiration and energy you bring to the discussion. Because, I know a lot. I've actually got a few friends that are multimillionaires. And they are probably the most unhappy, they probably shouldn't listen to this show, but they are probably the most unhappy people that I know, because money doesn't solve all the problems. You have it does buy a certain amount of freedom. But other than that, you have to really have that internal happiness yourself, regardless what the financial situation is. And I've got to say, Derek, I'm so impressed with your life in general. I mean, you were in a rock and roll band, the Echoes, and you've just had such a dynamic Hollywood experience, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Well, at different times throughout my life, I've worked as a recording engineer. Mm-hmm. I've been a record producer, a theatrical agency. I've been a manager of stars. I've ran a nightclub. I've played guitar for many stars. I've run a show band. I don't know. I've also, worked as a building contractor.
Oh, now that seems a little out of character with the rest of them,
I was an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't an engineer by choice. I was an engineer because I won it in school in London. Mm-hmm. Had a high IQ, and they asked my dad what he wanted me to be. And, he said, I wanted him to be an engineer. I didn't want to be an engineer. I didn't even know what an engineer was. And I became an engineer, and I had to go through all my schooling and everything. And then I was in charge. This was a mechanical engineer, so I was in charge of a shop floor at 18 years old. I mean, people hated me. I wanted to get out of that. I think, what can I do? I'm an engineer. What do I do in life? So I started playing guitar under the bedclothes so my father wouldn't hear me, because he would have killed me if he'd have heard me playing my guitar, And I left the engineering, and I had to leave home as well because he wouldn't have any of that. I mean, I was the only educated person in the whole family. So, I mean, it was a long time ago when people wasn't educated at all. So I went to try to do auditions and things like that, and I was starving in the end because no one wanted me.
Well, eventually they did. I mean,
yes, in the end, I joined a band.
Mm-hmm.
And that band, I got to tell you about this band. This band, the Echoes, was not the Echoes, it was the Brothers. There was a guy named Joe Brown, and he was the guitarist for this band, and he went on a TV show called Ready, Steady, Go, and they didn't want the band. So there was this band. I didn't know. I went down an audition for this band, and they said, yes, you're great. All they wanted to do was have a guitarist because they didn't have one. So I played with them for about 3 months, and one day I got the courage to ask them, when's our first gig? And they said, we don't do gigs, we just practice. That time I was really starving. So I went out and I knocked on every door, and I didn't know what to do. I just said, I've got to get a job for this band. And I did. I got a job playing for a really big star, and they didn't want to go. All they wanted to do was rehearse. Anyway, I got them to do that, and that was the beginning of the Echoes.
Oh my goodness, that's the first management client you had as well. It sounds like. Well, it's amazing what we will do when we're forced to do it.
When we're starving, yes.
Yeah, the how creative we can be when things are kind of at a place where it's like, okay, the only way to go is up from here,
That's right. I worked in Nashville for 9 years with Conway Twitty. Mm-hmm. And when I was there at first, I went to, McDonald's or somewhere, and this girl gave me this tape. Yeah, it was a long time ago in the 80s. And I listened to it, and I said, this is fantastic. I went back to McDonald's and said, did you sing this? She said, I wrote and sung all the songs. I said, this is amazing. I went to Conway and I said, listen to this. And he listened to it and he said, that's really good. How much money you got? And that's what, so in Nashville, when I was there, which was in the 80s, there was a 10,000, this is what, I don't know if it's true, but this is what they say. 10,000 people come to Nashville every month and 10,000 other people leave because, they're hopefuls. Mm-hmm. So don't ever touch anyone as far as, getting them a record or anything until they've been there for 2 years, because no one ever has.
It sounds a little bit like LA.
Yeah. Dolly Parton plays in a pub, so where are these guys going to play, So, and that's the thing. To become a star isn't to have talent. Of course, every star's got talent, and look at Star Search. It's fantastic. Everyone's wonderful. But have they got the staying power? Are they willing to starve? Will they continue no matter what? That's what makes a star. That's what made me. I was starving.
Well, and you've had such a dynamic career. So your band actually was a warm-up for the Beatles. Just get out.
No, Beatles were the warm-up for the Echoes.
Oh.
Yeah, that was... we.
I read that wrong. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, we were before the Beatles. What's the name? The drummer, what's his name? He was our drummer.
Ringo?
Ringo Starr. He was our drummer before the Beatles. We were the biggest name in England, except for Cliff Richard. Cliff was big. Cliff and the Shadows. Later on, I played with the Shadows too. But we played the Covent Club a couple of weeks before they released "I Want to Hold Your Hand," and we were the stars, and they were the warm-up band, and I thought they were great. But they were just the same as any other band. There was tons of bands around Liverpool. There's tons of bands everywhere by that time, because we were one of the first, and we went through the hard times.
Yeah.
And in the end, we were the first big tour we played. We played for Conway Twitty, Johnny Preston, and Freddie Cannon. And we closed all the. In England they had a lot of cinemas, and we went to all these cinemas, the big cinemas, and they wasn't showing American movies at that time, and they were trying to go through English movies. There was started with 007. That was really good, and it was a success, but most of the others weren't. So the cinemas were closing, and we closed probably 50 cinemas on our tour.
Oh my goodness!
Because we were playing on that stage, and they were all waiting for the box office to be full, and we did it. But after that, they had nothing. So we closed all the Moss Empires in England.
Oh my goodness! Well, your background is like a who's who of who's in the music business. You basically have worked with, just all the great people. It's just amazing.
Well, yeah, the thing is, we were lucky for a start. We were a band, and they wanted to bring a lot of American artists into England, but the Musicians Union would let the artists come, but wouldn't let the bands in. So we played for all the stars that came there, like Fred. Actually, the funniest thing was that Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons came. Well, they all played their own instruments. So what could happen? The Musicians Union allowed them into England, and they played their own instruments, and we had to sit in the audience.
The backup band.
Yeah, because they played their own stuff. But we also played for a lot of others. We played for the Monkees. We played for just so many other people. Tomty Hall, Eartha Kitt, Springfield. But a lot of those were for England, from Europe, and so. But we played for anyway. But that's how we started, and that's how I got to know all the managers. Like when Sam Cooke was in the States and he got killed, his recording manager came to England because he got sick of being in the States. His one guy, Sam Cooke, was dead, and his name was Mike Collier, and I started producing records with him, which was great, And the reason for that is because he was managing the Echoes that I was in, and I was, as a nice guy, and I was friendly with him, and he was trying to get other people's to have hits. And I said, can I help you? And he said, sure. And he never paid me, but I got all my experience in recording from him.
Wow.
That's the thing. You do things for nothing, and it's great. And I still do. I do things for nothing.
It sounds like that's part of what feeds your happiness, too.
Yeah, I help people. I'm in Mexico now, and I help people all the time. I used to help people in England, but I've lived all over the world. But I get my happiness out of helping people, and not just monetary, but helping people, trying to change them. So if you give a man a fish, you can feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, then he's happy for the rest of his life. And that's what I try to do.
Well, on your book, I found was just very well written. And I love that your wife, Elizabeth, is part of it as well, because you have Elizabeth's thoughts on like the quality of life. And I think it's nice to have that kind of feedback. You hear your voice throughout it and Elizabeth's, and it was just a real enjoyable read.
Well, thank you. She's the cleverest person I've ever met. And when I met her, she was doing what she did at the end, but she was building power stations, the upfront development, and she was earning no money. And so I became her manager.
Well, you're definitely good at managing. My goodness.
But she's so clever to be able to do these things. And, she became very successful in what she does, But apart from that, she's very intelligent, which I was never.
She's the brains of the operation, huh?
Yeah. I got what I got because I found out about life, what makes people, like I know that I found these things out by observing people, and I believe that our thoughts create our world. And I've seen many books written about it, but you've got to get it from within, So I read a book by Richard Channing Haddock that in 1918 he wrote a book called The Power of Will, explaining the fundamentals of thought and how thought affects our lives. That was 100 years ago, and still people haven't got it.
Yeah.
But it's true. That's how I've lived my life. Not at the beginning of my life, it was just luck at the beginning. But then I've realized that whatever I believed, even before it was true, it became true. And that's the truth.
Mm-hmm. It's that power of belief that is really the foundation and creates everything going forward.
Yeah, and that's why I wrote about it in the book. I had to believe that I would be successful because I wasn't. I had nothing. I was starving. And I said, I tell you my story. There was this guy called Barry Stoddart. I don't know if he's still alive, but he when I was at school, he said to me, I'm learning to play the guitar, and I'd like you to play in my band. I didn't know anything about bands, guitars, anything. I was at school. So I said, great, I'll do that, whatever. I went around his house and I thought, what do I do? And his father had a bass, but it wasn't a real bass. It was a tea chest, a chest that you put tea in, bring it over from India, because there was no tea bags at that time in England. And it was a big wooden box. And it had a broom handle and a piece of string wrapped around a broom handle and a little hole in the middle of the tea chest with a knot in it, and so it couldn't come out. And then you'd pull the string and it would make noises, bass noises. And it was loud because it was a great big box. And he showed me how to play that, and I was so happy I was playing. The main thing was, this guy, he lived in a house, because I didn't. I lived in a development for people who didn't have houses. So I thought it was like the God there, you know. Mm-hmm. And a little while later, he gave me the sack. He let me go because he found a real bass player. And so later on, he called me again and he said, come and play with me, and you can play the drums, which wasn't drums, it was a washboard, you know, with the thimbles to make a noise like drums, because no one had any money. Anyway, I said, I'm not going to do that because you fired me, and I need a contract. So he wrote out a contract. And I went back to him, and I was playing the washboard, and then he found a real drum, and he fired me again. Because you can, you know. So
it's a brutal business, isn't it?
Yeah. So I was at school. So I said to myself, I'm going to play guitar better than him. I'd never played a guitar in my life. Mm-hmm. So when I became an engineer, I bought myself a guitar, and I had this on my mind. I'm going to play guitar better than him. And I don't know if I ever played guitar better than him. I don't care. But I became a guitarist. And that's life. I believed I could do it. You have to have something to push you, or you have to push yourself, or whatever. And this is the beginning of, after that, you know, I was in Italy, and I had this girlfriend in England, in London, and I got this thought that I was there. I thought I was there for a little while, but it ended up I was there for a whole year, because we made a movie and it won the San Remo Film Festival. So I was there, and I didn't want to go back and leave her, because I got this crazy thought in my mind that if I left her, I'd lose everything. So in the end, I left her. I came back to England and I'd lost everything. My thoughts, you know, these are my lessons. But it was all right, because I met this other guy who got me back with the echoes, because they were big then, and I was fine, you know. But things like that, people ignore these things that happen to them. Yeah. But I never did. I started to believe that whatever I would believe would be true. And I started believing some amazing things, and everything worked. That's my life.
Well, isn't that just beautiful? And I think it's such a great message, because it's showing people how, you know, thoughts, either good or bad, but, you know, how basically
bad.
But you had these you know, thoughts about something, and so you went ahead and you just did it. And, you know, either way, you know, it seems like you are on the path that you're always meant to be on. You know, it worked out towards your benefit.
Yeah, and that's, you know, look, this is what I think. The world is a mirror of the way we think and feel and reflects our thoughts. Some people appear to have a world filled with what they want, while others don't.
Yeah.
It's our deep-rooted feeling that forms our individual worlds. We perceive events in a good or bad light according to our habitual thoughts. When people think in positive terms, their world becomes more positive. That's what I've written in the book, that, you know, it's up to each individual person. It's not up to anyone else. Ignore everyone else. You know, I've got this thing that I don't ever watch the news. I never watch. I used to watch the news, but then I thought, this is bad. The news is always bad. What, you know, so I write in my book, like, try not to watch the news or television or read the paper or anything like that, just for 1 week. You then analyze if the disaster we missed seeing, the news last week, hurt us in some way.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't the news leave us with a terrible impression that the world is turning into a terrible place? But are your family, friends, and neighbors becoming evil? Of course not.
Yeah.
It's all in the news, you know, and that's what people believe, and that's why people are not successful. Because they believe the world is horrible and everyone's out to get them, and, you know, their boss is horrible. You know, it's not true. It's just once you believe it, it becomes true.
It's interesting how much our thoughts really impact the world around us and also our quality of life.
Yes. You're successful. Why is it? Because you think great thoughts. Why do people think horrible thoughts and sabotage their lives? Because they don't know that they're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of get into that rut. And that's why books like yours are so important, because it allows us to kind of reshift that focus and go, okay, well, wait a minute. If I'm a powerful creator, then what am I doing? You know?
And that's why I've got all these exercises in my book, and I've got questions, and you got to you don't just read the book. Answer the questions for yourself, and do the exercises. Like, stupid little exercises can change your life. Like, how can you change what you're doing now? I say, take a walk. Don't take a walk going anywhere. Just walk. Walk for at least half an hour in one direction, and don't know where you're going. And then walk back. I've done this many times, because on your way back, the universe starts talking to you. It's the same as a meditation, only it works. And then you get these ideas, what I can do. I mean, I believe that the world right now is full of opportunities, and it's full of non-opportunities. I mean, 100 years ago, there were very few opportunities because the world changed very little. So if you were born poor, you ended up poor. Now, there's things changing every day, and people don't see this. If you could understand the amazing part of now, when everything changes, what are you going to be in 5 years' time? It probably isn't invented. Yeah. So look at how things are going and start doing those things, and you'll become successful. That's what I did with guitar playing. No one was playing guitar in England. They were playing it in America. And all of a sudden, when we started playing, they had to come over to England to make money. So we started playing for them. It was new. It was different. It was a change. I started rap. There was no such thing as rap. I was in Chicago. I met Robert Tarantino, the promoter for A&M Records. He did the promotion for Sting, the Kogos, the Carpenters, all this. And he was unhappy because he was going all around America trying to sell everyone's albums, and his wife was doing it was in where was it? In Chicago, and she was doing the centerfolds for Hugh Hefner for the Playboy, not doing them, but, arranging them. So, and she was going to leave him, and I said, why don't we go to Houston, to Chicago, and because I know this guy is a maniac. He was responsible for all this. I said, why don't we open our own studio? So he said, yeah, I'll do that. And we started rap. Not because I was good, but because he was a genius.
Well, it's interesting how inspiration, the different places inspiration come from, and the things that people will go ahead and discover that they never even intended for it, to happen. I mean, yeah. It's kind of like how life leads us on this journey, and like how you initially start out as an engineer because you had a lot of really good intending people around you, and then you're in the music business, Yeah.
It's amazing. It's all about thought. I say thought is the most powerful force in the universe. And with thought, you can be really successful, you can be a billionaire, but are you happy?
Yeah.
then you've got the wrong thought. You have to know what's important in life. I know what's important in life, and I'm sure you do. It's being happy. My brother-in-law, he owned a quarter of Piccadilly Circus, I don't know where, the Trocadero. He did that because he started off poor like me, and he did some deals and whatever, and he became very, very rich. Really rich, Was he happy? No. The last time I saw him, he tried to throw me through a plate glass window because I said something he didn't like.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, it's interesting how these paths take us different places. And my goodness, Derek, I could talk with you all day. I mean, you've got such, your stories are just so fascinating, hearing about your life and all the things that you've done.
I know people can go to your website, derekberman.com, to learn more about not only your book, but who you are as a person and be part of your community. And you also have some other things on there.
On my website, I write blogs. I try to help people. People write to me, and I write back. And I just want to, I want people to get it. It's not, I have friends that are billionaires, and they're so unhappy, and they won't take anything from me because, I'm just another guy. Well, when you write a book, you become an author. And I can't help my friends, a lot of them. They're just too rich. And, it's terrible that all the things that a lot of stars I know, Olivia Newton-John, and she's a wonderful person. She's just got cancer again. And, I'm trying to figure out why. Yeah. Why? And it hurts me. And when I had cancer. Olivia called me and she said, "You're going to get better." I said, "Good, I will then."
Well, it's having all that positive thought in regards to putting things in that direction. That's great. Well, Derek, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story with us and your book and to be with us here today.
Well, thank you. Thanks for interviewing me. I think you're a great girl.
Oh, well, thank you.
Unfortunately, that's the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to tune in. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.